short stacked. He has a good hand, not a great hand.
I'll call.
Yeah.
And that's an easy call for Phil Ivey. He's only needs to put in an additional 3,000. And he has a very slight advantage on the coin flip. And most important, should Phil Ivey lose this coin flip, it's just a small nick in his stash.
Exactly.
Tan is fighting for his tournament life.
To the flop. And a 10 queen deuce gives Tan a straight draw.
Inside straight with a king.
A king or ace or jack?
Well, now with that 8, Tan can also make a straight with a 9. So an ace, jack, king, or 9.
Not going to happen, though, for Tan. And Ivey will eliminate Ivan Tan. And as you said, didn't cost him a whole lot to do that. And the passive expression on Phil Ivey's face doesn't change a whole lot. Talk about him arguably being the best player in the world. I don't know who's any better. He's won Monte Carlo, won $1.6 million, and bad news for everybody else. You're going to see more of him.
In 06, you can look forward to me playing a lot more poker tournaments. I'm going to try and play in all the events that pay $1 million or more for first. Concentrating a lot more, taking my time, preparing a lot better for the poker tournaments. I mean, before I would stay up all night, play in the cash game all through the night, and then end up playing the poker tournament at 12 o'clock. So I would play right up to the poker tournament on no sleep. Being out of the country helps out a lot because there's no side game for me to play in, so I'm not really distracted doing what I got to do to win this tournament.
And that lack of side game, I think, is actually a huge bonus for Phil Ivey because, let's be honest, when you're playing in live poker games where you're winning and losing $500,000 every night, it's sometimes hard to keep your interest in a tournament that doesn't have its pot of gold until 4 or 5 days later.
Cool.
And now that Phil Ivey can keep his eye on the ball for the whole time, I think these players are going to see an even more intense, more focused Phil Ivey. And that's not a exciting prospect for his opponents.
I remember being with you, actually, up in Verona, New York, when Phil Ivey was playing in one of our televised tournaments. And he had a $600,000 first prize to win, and I think second place was $250,000. And he said had to finish second to break even for the week.
That's right. Now, Ivey has made 2 pair on this multi-way flop, and he's a huge, huge favorite. I don't think he's going to be able to get much action. You look at his opponent's hands, and they don't really have great drawing possibilities.
Can't see Davies hanging around here, and he won't. So Ivey is going to win this one as well. Phil Ivey on a bit of a roll now.
And one of the real challenges for the other players at this table is not only Phil Ivey's great poker talent, but now his dominant chip stack.
Little bonus coverage now, and on one of our outer tables, one of the great players, Mike Sexton, is going to be eliminated.
Yeah. Probably made a mild mistake or two. Cameras are here for the funeral. Just got very unlucky. I mean, I lost a big fight with 2 kings and a pair of 10s and whatnot, and it just didn't work out. And last hand, even when I went all in, he hit the river card to outdraw me on that hand. So it just wasn't my day today. Sailing B.
Luckily for Mike Sexton, even when the luck goes bad, he might have a future in television.
We welcome you back to Melbourne. Barry Tompkins, Michael Koenig alongside. We're at the Crown Casino, and the Aussie Millions with literally millions at stake.
And moreover, for the native Australians, this is really the one tournament they want to win. This is like their national championship. Of course, the Dutchman won't mind taking it down either.
I think he'd be very pleased. That gets Humanicki out. Now Davies. Same hand.
1,200 is actually the minimum raise at this table, Barry. The blinds are 3 and 600, and so anyone who raises needs to make it at least double the big blind. That would be 1,200. for people who already have money in the pot as the smaller big blind, it's actually a very cheap raise to see a flop, which is why you see people with a 7-6 and a Jack-3 getting involved.
Right. Toss-up hand here. 3 players to the flop. Ace 5-8 on the flop.
And Barry, although everyone has missed this flop, well, that surprised me. I expected Lusk to still lead. He showed strength before, and he needs to convince these guys he's got a big hand.
And a 7 on the turn now does give Lusk an open-ended straight draw, gives Magnus a pair and a straight draw.
Magnus declined to bet, and Lusk took a little stab at it with his open-ended straight draw.
Cool.
And he can't lose Magnus.
And a 3 on the river, so now we'll see what Magnus does.
Well, I think he'll be delighted to just check this hand and get a showdown. Lusk looks like he wants to bet. Hesitating.
11, 425.
Now remember, he has but a 10 high. He probably realizes the only way he can win this is to bet and bluff. Seems to have a lot of indecision. Thinking, is there any way I can get this guy to fold the hand? And if the answer is no, he just has to give it up. But if he thinks there's an amount he can bet, oh! Lusk checks and Magnus will win with a pair of 7s.
Well, there you are. So Lusk just thinking better. I think he hesitated for a moment, thought, well, I got to make some decision here. Decided not to play, and Magnus will win that hand.
And I think that was a bit of a blunder there. I think additional pressure might have taken down the pot.
Here's our chip leader, Phil Ivey at 87,000, 37,000 more than Marcel Lusk. We have a new player at the table. Ben Grundy will sit in and make the table of 8 once again.
And there he is. Looks like he's gotten a day pass from Hogwarts. His pal Harry Potter has let him come to Australia. Boy, it's just amazing how young and accomplished so many of these players are these days.
And I think that's the operable word, is accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, this is a $10,000 buy-in tournament. That's a bit more than lunch money.
Not for the faint. How many get the short stack now with a king-jack? Staring Ivy down with a king-10 suited. On the flop, Jack 4 queen, so Homeniki is paired. And of course, Ivy with an open-ended straight draw.
This would be a fine spot for Mr. Homeniki to move all in, get the last of his chips involved. Instead, he merely calls. Oh!
And there you are. In your face, says Phil Ivey.
And now Homeniki cannot win. He can only hope for a split if a 10 hits the board. So this is as close to drawing dead as possible, and boy, you love that when your opponent is putting in his money when he cannot win.
And there you are on the river. It's a 4, so Phil Ivey with his straight. That's 15,000.
And that's more than Homeniki has, so in effect, Phil Ivey is forcing Homeniki to call all in for his remaining chips. Looks like Homeniki has about 10 or 11,000 left, and he folds.
Will live to play another day, so Phil Ivey will take in the money once again. And Ivey continues to be our chip leader, and that stack continues to grow. And Homeniki now clearly the short stack. You're watching the PartyPoker.com Aussie Millions. We're coming back. Welcome back to the PartyPoker.com Aussie Millions. We are in Melbourne, Australia at the Crown Casino. We're playing lots and lots of money. 8 players at our feature table, and Phil Ivey right now continuing to rule the roost. This is minus.
I'm sorry. I thought it was a bit the big one. My apologies.
Minus is in early position,
17.
and ace-5 is generally not a real good hand to play right up front.
Especially
because you've got a whole bunch of players behind you, and one of them could wake up with a hand like Mark.